So let's take a chance to look at encoding channels in Altair. We'll look at both how to do magnitude channels and how to do identity channels. So magnitude, right, anything ordered, so quantitative and ordinal. And for identity, things that are categorical. So I think Altair is going to call these nominal. So nominal, categorical, same thing. Everything else is either quantitative or ordered. Altair has 4 data types it recognizes, right? So they're going to be nominal, quantitative, ordinal, or time-based. So those are all of our options. So let's get started. We're going to follow along with all the different things you could do in D3, and we're going to do this from scratch in Altair. So to get started in Altair, I've got a collab notebook open here. Here are the channels for us to remember. And let's go and create a new, not a new text block. Let's create a new code block, and we'll go ahead and get Altair loaded up here. So the first thing we're going to do is import Altair. So import Altair as ALT is kind of the canonical way to import it. We want to get a data set loaded up. So in D3, we use the penguins data set. So let's go ahead and get that loaded up as well. So we can go ahead and load that up, import. So let's do from Vega datasets, import data, and then let's load it up, and then let's do data dot. Actually, it doesn't look like we have the penguins. So let's go grab it. We can go over here to the D3 and look at the data set we had. In D3, it was penguins.json, and that's from Vega datasets. So let's go find that. So Vega datasets is here. I've been here before. So let's load this one up. Let's see. So Vega datasets. All right, the data is all here. So let's go grab it. I think that, yeah, there's a link down here. So we could go ahead and actually take the link for the JSON that's being served through the GitHub IO. So we can go ahead and use that URI. We want the penguins, so let's do that. We can do it 2 ways here, right? We can use requests to actually pull down the JSON and have pandas process that for us. We can have 3 ways, I guess. We can have pandas will do all that work for us. So we can just pass the URI to pandas. And also we can just pass the URI to Altair directly. So let's try both. But first, let's load it up in pandas. So import pandas as PD, and then we'll call our data data. So the data is going to be pandas.read JSON, and we can just pass the URI directly. So let's look at what's in our data. And here we go. Yeah, it looks like we're working with it before. So let's start with an Altair chart. Let's get started. So alt.chart is going to be our basic call, and we'll pass in our data. If we do that, we're going to get an error. Schema's invalid, right? So what it tries to do is generate the Vega Lite chart spec and then go and render it. Before it goes to render it, right, you can actually see that it is trying to validate the chart before it does it. So within Altair, right, it's going ahead and trying to run the validation. It was invalid because we didn't specify a mark for our data. So we can specify here to start a mark circle, and that's going to give us a circle. So there we go. We got a circle. If we want to see all the marks that are available, I got the Altair docs up here, and I'm on the left under marks. So yeah, encodings come before in the docs, but first for marks in Altair, these are all the ones we have available. So each of these is built on top of the Vega Lite API, and so they're going to mirror the marks that are available in Vega Lite. So often when I'm using Altair, I'll be looking at the Altair docs, but also the Vega docs, Vega Lite docs, because they're what actually is underlying the charts that are being built. So Altair is just a way to speak to Vega Lite. So here's the list of different marks that are available in Vega Lite. So here we did a mark circle. Not very interesting. Let's jump back to our D3 and see what we wanted to build out. So here, the basic channel we can do is position along a common scale using the magnitude. So this is the chart in D3. Let's go and build that chart in Altair. So here we've got our chart, and let's go ahead and add an encoding. So we're going to use the encode feature, and here we want to encode on X. So we can encode on X with here, right, we want to use beak length. So we can go ahead and do that. And if we do it just like that, I think we're going to get the chart. And there it is for us, right? So beak length, and we didn't tell it that it was quantitative. Altair figured that out. And yeah, we got to spell it right here. Altair figured that out for us. So we get the same chart if you tell it's quantitative. You can see that the default here on Vega Lite and correspondingly in Altair is to start at 0. If we want to go ahead and just span the data just to look like the D3 one, we can actually wrap this in Altair's X-scale wrapper and then set the scale with altair.scale. And we want to set 0 to be false here. So that's gonna just give us the range data. Cool. We use mark circle. You can play around with using different marks and different encodings on that. So the circle is going to have a number of different encodings that we can use for the circle. Each mark has different encodings that you can use, and you can see those in the docs. So let's move through and build out the different things. So position on an unaligned scale. Okay, so let's do that. In Altair, right, this is going to be a facet. And the way that we can do that is we can use the column encoding. So this is going to be really easy for us to do in Altair 2. So we can go ahead and call column, or set the column, CUMN. It's going to be equal to, let's use the species. And I think this is going to do it for us, right? There we go. We got them all. So yeah, we split that out on an unaligned scale here. And that's what we've got. Cool, not too much more to do there, right? We could go ahead and tell it that this is nominal, but it figured that out for us already. It made that guess. And we can go ahead and see the guess it made, right? It's always useful to inspect the JSON. So we can take our chart here. If we didn't specify nominal, right, we could say to JSON. And that's going to show us the Altair chart that got built out. There's new lines, so maybe it'd be nice to wrap this in a print. And if we go to the encodings, we can see that on the column, right, it said type nominal, right? So I went ahead and encoded that as a nominal, even though, it's got the whole data in here, even though we didn't tell it to. So if I scroll way up, way up, actually looks like I cleared the whole thing out. All right, there we go. You can see even though it didn't specify a nominal, it did pick that for us. So that's really big, right? And if we wanted to, actually encode the data as a JSON, we could do that. So it's not here. Maybe this would be a good place to show off what it would look like if we actually just use the URI. So we can just do this. Alt.chart, we can actually just pass that in. Species encoding, it needs a type, right? It wasn't able to guess it off the data frame. So let's give it a nominal. And there we go, right? We get the same chart. This actually is just, rendering in the front end of our browser, querying the data directly. So pretty cool. We can also tell Altair to take any data set we have and write it to JSON locally and have Altair load that. So that would be putting on the data transformer, which is useful when you have big data sets that you're working with locally. Cool. So that's that one. Let's keep going. Position on unaligned scale. Here, let's do length. So length, right? It looks like we're using a bar here, so we can use the mark bar. It's going to be available for us. So let's just use the URI, right? Oh, and I forgot to show you what this looks like to JSON. So we can actually see the whole spec here. It's not going to be crazy long because there's going to be no data in it. It's just going to be a link to the data. So there's a link. Oop, here's a link to the data. And this is the whole chart, right? Cool. That's the Vega Lite spec directly. So if we do, here we want to do the length one. So let's do that. We can go ahead and throw in a mark bar. So let's do that. All right, we've got the columns still split out. Let's put them back on the same chart. Got it back on the same chart. And it looks like what we've done here is plot all the bars right on top of each other. We've encoded the X position, so the width of these in this case. And we probably want to set this back to true. And to make that chart, it looks like we also want to encode the Y position of the bars. So we can do that, right? So let's set it to be the index, right? And the index on the data frame actually isn't available to us here. Oh, well, we also use the URI. We could use data. Even if we use data, the index on the data frame isn't going to be available. So we can go back up and do a little transformation on our data. I like to do it all in one place at the top on the data transformation. So let's say data of I. Let's set that to be data.index. Cool. So now we have an I on the data, and we can set I to be set it to be ordered here. There we go. We got our bar chart, right? It's really long. So a few things we could do. If we wanted to shorten it, right, we could go ahead and filter our data, right? So we could go with data dot, well, we could just pass a head, right? Or we could do, you know, that's the first 5 rows, or we could, you know, select any rows we want with a filter. I like to use iLoc, so we could do integer location. Let's take the first 10, all of the columns. If you want to make the data smaller, right, we could take just the columns that we want, but let's take all of them, and we can get the first 10 that way. Whoop, iLoc, got an extra parenthesis. And there we go, right? That was by filtering it on data. The other way is there's transformations that are available in Altair. So you can either do transformations in Altair, or you can do them using pandas. So there, the data we passed in was already filtered, but we can also do this in Altair directly. So this would be a transform filter. And I think, let's see, we want datum.I to be less than 10. Let's try something like that. And we had to pass in a function here. Okay, let's double check on the docs. So it's always good to go back to the docs. So we can go to our data transformations here. We want to do a transform filter. I've been here before. And this looked like what we wanted to do. And it did it on the URL, right? And it used datum. So here is the placeholder that we needed from altair.datum. I think that we can still use the data frame. Let's give it a shot. So let's go load this at the top. Got that one. So let's go ahead and try it here. Cool. So that worked for us too. We could also do it there. All right. Let's go and do the next chart. Okay, there's one more I wanted to show on here, right? We did the transform. If we didn't transform it, right, we can go ahead and set the height. So if we do the properties, we can set height equal to 200. Right, and that'll go ahead and set the height here, right? It got everything on the same chart. The bar height themselves were adjusted automatically, right? We could set them if we wanted to manually, so we could set the height equal to 20 on those, right? You can see there are a bunch of big bars that are overlapping now, and right, the y-axis, right, just the index, it doesn't mean anything. So if we wanted to turn something like that off, right, we could do alt.y. And give that the axis as none. And that should turn off the axis for us. Cool. So that's that one. All right, let's jump to the next one. That was the bars. Next is the tilt. So angle isn't actually implemented in Altair yet, so we're gonna have to skip this one. You can't do the angle. You'll have to jump down to Vega Lite or D3 to do that. Let's look at area. All right. It looks like we want to go ahead and size the circles. Again, this one's going to be easy to do. Let's start back with our circles here, right? And we can again use the properties to go and you know set the size to be a little bit closer to what we're seeing over there. Let's go to 700 or something like that. And there we go. And let's go ahead and set the area. Right, we're setting area, so let's do that. Here we use mark circle, right? So circle is going to have the encoding channel of size, so we can set the size, and let's set the size to just be the same here. And that's what we got. You can see it's a little bit smaller down here than over here, right, it started at 0, so that's working. Cool. All right, that was pretty easy. Let's keep going. Color luminance. Let's see if we can do that. So this one looks like it's on the grayscale, and then we can go into saturation. So let's go ahead and do color. So let's stick with the same chart here. Usually I'll be developing a base chart and keep iterating on it. So let's keep the size and let's go and set the encoding channel for color. So right, we want another encoding channel. So let's do it. Let's set color. And maybe we want to set this to species. Let's let it guess the data type for us. And it looks like it guessed it as an ordinal, or sorry, as a nominal data type. So we can do the same thing here, say it's nominal, right? And this got us a color on a nominal scale, right? We want to do the, what do we want to do? The luminance. Okay, so that's going to help to say this is actually ordinal, right? And if we want to set it to be luminance, it looks like it set it to be the saturation. So saturation, and then this one is the nominal, right? Is going to be the hue. But let's go ahead and set the luminance. So let's do it as ordinal, and we can go ahead and do alt.color, give it a scale, alt.scale, and then we can give it a scheme if we want. So here, I think that was the grays scheme that we were seeing. So let's give this one a shot. Yeah, and there we go. So we're setting them across that gray scale using the species. Here, actually, I set the grayscale using the X attribute, the same one as X. So we can go triple redundant here if we want. Keep that one as quantitative. And then there we go, we're setting it darker to the right. We can set the range there if we want as well. We could go ahead and do that. Okay, next, right, we wanted to do the color saturation. That was closer to the default in Altair, but let's go ahead and do that one separately. So color, we did grays, right? And we can just go ahead and do something like blues. I think that's going to get it for us. There's a lot of different options for colors, for color schemes, right? We could use blues, we could use oranges, something like that. And that's going to actually use the color saturation on a single color for us. Cool. Okay, next, curvature. So curvature, I don't really know how to do in Vega Lite, and hence I don't know how to do it in Altair. So let's skip that one. If we want to do spatial region, it looks like we're doing the region for the species. We can go ahead and do that in Altair. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we're setting X as the beak length, but let's swap that out with Y. And then we can go ahead and set X as the species. And let's do it nominally. There's really no sense to order them. And there we go. Stacking up a bunch of different encoding channels here, right? And we're able to separate them out using that nominal data type. Cool. We can crank through these. Color hue. So yeah, again, here maybe we want to use a nominal color encoding. So let's do that. Here the color will align with our X position if we use species. So let's do species. I don't think it'll be happy converting to a quantitative. Let's give it a try. Yeah, wasn't happy with that. We could give it an ordered. Right, and that gave us, the same luminance scale that we saw before. So let's actually give it a nominal type, and it's going to go ahead and do that for us. Oh, we did nominal on oranges, so that didn't help us. If we do nominal and we don't tell it what scale to use, it'll go ahead and give us this. Yeah. Need a parenthesis there. There we go. I think that was actually close to the first one we saw. And if we want to go ahead and use a different color scale, again, we can use a different color scale here, right? All that scale. And maybe here we'll use the scheme, something like category 10, I think is one of the schemes. Yeah, so some different colors. So we can do anything we want there. Again, nominal color encoding. Pretty cool using the hue. Motion, we could do motion in Altair. It's totally possible. But in this case, we'd be using Altair to, create the image. So, we can have Altair be blasting PNGs out, or have it be, rendering to HTML, and then put it in a loop and keep drawing it. So we can use Altair as the rendering engine, and then Python or JavaScript, well, JavaScript wrap Vega Lite, or Python to wrap Altair to go ahead and render an interactive graphic. It isn't really using Altair, so I'm not going to dive into an example of how to do that. It's not really something that's built in. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that one. Could do it. It's not really a great feature though. You can see this is the kind of thing where if we have our chart in D3, right, it's pretty easy to go ahead and add that in D3. D3 is a pretty natural place to do this. We could force this out of Altair by by wrapping it, but it's not really a great Altair feature to put motion in. And shape. Finally, we can do shape. So let's give it a shot. Let's stick with our same one here. We're going to have a bunch of the encoding channels used at the end. So let's dive in here. Got this same chart. Let's go ahead and give it a different mark type. So I think that's going to be the shape. So let's give it another redundant one. Let's give it a nominal species shape. And I think this one's going to throw an error. Let's see. Well, I just didn't do anything because circle doesn't know anything about shape. So here we're going to want to do this with a mark point, I think. And there we go. Mark point is doing that for us. Cool. So that's one of the options on mark point. Okay, that's what I wanted to run through in Altair. You can see, it's really easy to build out some of the charts that we can do in Altair, extending some of the detailed functionality in D3 with something like motion or angle. Right? Once you have it built on D3, it's easy to do those little low-level tweaks. But if we could do it in the high-level Altair, we can do it really quickly. It's a powerful tool. Use all these different encodings. And we can even keep going. So, cool. Thanks for watching.